We're supposed to use the magnitude, which is 8, and the direction in standard position to write the vector in component form. So we know how to write 220 in standard form. We always start with this as 0 degrees and we rotate counterclockwise. It's just the convention we've all adopted. So this is 90 degrees. This is 180 degrees because it's a semicircle. And so 220 is somewhere between 180 and 270 degrees. So I'll draw mine right here. Now look, if this is 180, then this is whatever's left over after you subtract this from 180, right? So this would be 40 degrees in here. So vector v is going in this direction. We can call this vector v because I told us vector v is 220 degrees. So the magnitude is 8, so we can use that to find out the rest of the components of the vector because we want to know the I and j components, right? The x and y parts to this vector. So to find out where that ends up, we can use the fact that this line has to be 8 in size. And then, like we've done before, is we can make a right angle with the x-axis, and now we've got right angle trigonometry going on. So we'll mark this as negative y because we're going down, and then this is x. And if I want to solve for x, it's adjacent to 40, and the 8 is a hypotenuse of this triangle, right? So 40 degrees, this is what's opposite of 40 degrees. So if I want to solve for x, I want the adjacent, and then I need to use something that I know, or else I'll have two unknowns in my equation. So I'm going to make sure I use the hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse is cosine. So cosine of 40 degrees is the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse side. Now I've got something to solve. We want to just make sure our calculator's in degrees because this isn't one of our special known triangle values. So got to use a calculator for this one. So I'll round off there, 0.766. That equals x over 8. And then if I'm trying to get x by itself, I want to multiply both sides by 8. So x is going to be 0.766 times 8. So that's 6.128. Okay, so that's the I component, 6.128 roughly. We rounded off. But we got to do something similar for finding the j component, which is the vertical distance on our x and y grid. So that's what's opposite of 40 degrees, and then we want to use the hypotenuse again probably. So sine of 40 is what's opposite over the hypotenuse. You don't necessarily have to have that negative plugged in now as long as you remember that y is going in a negative direction at the end. Oops, there's my equal sign. So sine of 40 is opposite divided by hypotenuse. To solve, I'm going to change sine of 40 into a decimal value. And I'll carry out a bunch of decimals. And y over 8. To get y by itself, we want to multiply both sides by 8. So multiply this by 8. So that's 5.1423. 5.1423 roughly. That's equal to negative y. In other words, y is negative 5.1423. And there we go. We've got our vector.